My name is Ethan Bradshaw. I'm 42 years old, and I came within hours of becoming sufferer number 4 in my wife's eliminating spree. I still wake up at night in cold sweats thinking about how I almost didn't open that box, how I almost ignored the warning that saved my life. Let me start from the beginning. 5 years ago, my first marriage imploded in an ugly divorce. I spent those years alone, focusing on my accounting practice, convinced I'd missed my shot at happiness. Then I met Victoria Ashford at a pharmaceutical conference. She was intelligent, gorgeous, successful in her career as a sales representative. We clicked immediately. 6 months of dating turned into a proposal, and last year we got married. Her daughter Sophia, 14 years old from her first marriage, actually seemed to like me. After all the stories you hear about blended families, having a teenager who didn't resent me felt like hitting the lottery. Everything seemed perfect. We were planning to buy a house together, merge our lives completely. Victoria told me her first husband, Alexander, had died in a car accident 2 years prior. She cried when she shared that story on our third date, describing how she and Sophia had to rebuild their lives after losing him suddenly. I held her while she cried and thought about how strong she was to survive that tragedy and still open her heart to love again. What I didn't know was that every tear was calculated, every tremor in her voice was performance. Every detail of that story was a lie designed to make me trust her completely. 3 months ago, we were sitting in Mason's Café downtown. Sophia had just made her high school volleyball team, and Victoria suggested we celebrate with the lunch before I headed back to the office. It was one of those ordinary moments that makes you feel like life is finally working out. We were laughing, planning Sophia's first game, talking about vacation ideas for the summer, normal family stuff. The kind of day where you think you've finally figured out how to be happy. Victoria and Sophia excused themselves to use the restroom, leaving me alone at our corner table. That's when this stranger appeared. He was maybe 65, average height, wearing an expensive but understated gray suit. Nothing about him screamed danger or urgency. He looked like someone's grandfather, the kind of guy you'd see at a country club or business lunch. He walked straight to my table without hesitation, placed a small blue velvet jewelry box down, and spoke in a calm voice that somehow carried absolute certainty. "You'll need this tonight, Ethan. Don't open it until you're alone. And whatever you do, don't let Victoria know you have it." I started to stand up, started to demand who he was and how the hell he knew my name, but he was already walking away. The whole interaction lasted maybe 10 seconds. He vanished through the front entrance into the lunch crowd like smoke dissolving in air. I sat there staring at this blue velvet box sitting on my table like a small, explosive device. I could see Victoria and Sophia making their way back from the restroom, laughing about something together. Every instinct told me to grab that box, chase the stranger down the street, demand answers and explanations. But something in his voice, some quality of absolute certainty and urgency, made me slip the box into my messenger bag instead. "Everything okay?" Victoria asked, as she slid back into her seat. She's always been good at reading my face, knowing when something's bothering me. It's one of the things I loved about her, how attentive she was to my moods and feelings. Now I wonder if it was just another tool in her arsenal and a way to monitor whether I suspected anything. "Yeah, fine," I lied, forcing what I hoped was a convincing smile. "Just got a text from work. Client emergency. Nothing serious." Sophia was already back on her phone, scrolling through messages from her volleyball teammates. That typical teenage obliviousness that I'd found endearing. Victoria squeezed my hand across the table and suggested we order dessert, and I sat there wondering what the hell was in that box and why a complete stranger thought I'd need it tonight. The word tonight kept echoing in my head. Not tomorrow, not next week. Tonight, specifically tonight. The rest of lunch passed in a blur. I kept touching my messenger bag, feeling the outline of that velvet box through the canvas. Victoria noticed my distraction. "Ethan, are you sure everything's all right? You seem a million miles away." I blamed the fictional work emergency again, said I might need to work late tonight to sort it out. Victoria's expression shifted slightly, something I couldn't quite read at the time, but now recognize as annoyance. Her plan required me at dinner. "Oh, I was hoping we could all have dinner together. Sophia's been looking forward to showing you her volleyball schedule." Sophia looked up from her phone with that practiced teenage indifference. "It's cool, Mom. Ethan has work stuff. We can do it tomorrow." There was something in the way Sophia said it that bothered me even then. Not resentment exactly, but resignation, like she was used to plans changing, used to adults disappointing her, used to being secondary to other priorities. Actually, I heard myself saying, the work thing can wait until tomorrow morning. Let's definitely do dinner together tonight. Victoria's smile was radiant, absolutely brilliant. Perfect. I'll make my special pasta. Sophia, you can help me with the salad. Looking back now, I wonder if my insistence on coming to dinner threw off her timing, forced her to adjust plans on the fly. If the stranger's warning had come earlier or later, would she have postponed? Was there something specific about tonight that made it optimal for her plan? We paid the check and headed out to our separate cars. Victoria and Sophia were parked on the street while my sedan was in the lot behind the cafe. As I walked to my car alone, I pulled out my phone and called my business partner, Mitchell Hayes. "Mitch, I need a favor," I said when he answered. "Can you cover my afternoon appointments? Something's come up." Mitchell had been my partner for 8 years. He knew me well enough to hear the tension in my voice, even when I tried to hide it. "Everything okay?" "I don't know yet. I'll explain later if there's something to explain." I drove straight to my apartment, the one I'd kept even after marrying Victoria because we were planning to buy a house together in a few months. Victoria and Sophia lived in her house across town, and we'd been splitting time between both places while we figured out our next steps. That afternoon, I was grateful for the privacy, for having a space that was completely mine where no one could walk in unexpectedly. The blue velvet box felt heavier than it should as I pulled it from my bag. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at it for a full minute before finally opening the lid with trembling hands. Inside was a flash drive, a small key, and a handwritten note on expensive paper. The handwriting was precise, almost calligraphic, the kind of careful penmanship that takes time and attention. "Ethan," the note read, "my name is Alexander Winters. I was Victoria's first husband and Sophia's father. If you're reading this, I'm either dead or they've finally succeeded in making everyone think I'm dead. The flash drive contains evidence that will explain everything. The key is to a storage unit at Highland Storage on Maple Avenue, Unit 237. Everything you need to protect yourself and Sophia is there. You have approximately 6 hours before Victoria attempts to eliminate you. She's done this before. I was just too slow to stop her. Don't make my mistake. Trust nothing she's told you about me. Trust nothing she's told you about anything." My hands were shaking as I read the note, 3 times, 4 times, trying to process what it was saying. Alexander Winters was supposed to be dead, eliminated in a car accident 2 years ago. Victoria had cried when she told me about it during our 3rd date, how she and Sophia had to rebuild their lives after losing him so suddenly. She'd shown me photos of him, told me stories about their marriage, described his funeral with such vivid detail that I'd cried with her. I plugged the flash drive into my laptop with trembling fingers, and what I found made my blood run cold. The first folder contained medical records going back 15 years, Victoria's medical records. Multiple prescriptions for psychiatric medications I'd never seen her take, never seen in her bathroom cabinet or purse. Diagnosis of borderline personality disorder, antisocial tendencies, pathological lying, inability to form genuine emotional attachments. Notes from multiple therapists over the years documenting manipulative behavior, violent outbursts, threats against romantic partners. One therapist's note from 7 years ago read, "Patient shows no genuine empathy for others. All relationships appear transactional in nature. Patient views romantic partners as resources to be exploited. Serious concern for partner safety if relationship ends or if patient feels threatened." The second folder was worse. It contained investigation reports from a private detective Alexander had apparently hired 6 months before his supposed passing. Hundreds of photos of Victoria meeting with various men in restaurants, hotels, coffee shops. Not affairs, I realized as I read the detective's notes, but reconnaissance. She was evaluating potential targets, assessing their financial situations, determining who had the most to offer with the least risk. Financial records showed money transfers from joint accounts to offshore accounts in her name only. Emails discussing insurance policies, specifically life insurance policies she'd taken out on Alexander without his knowledge or consent. The policies totaled $1.2 million across 3 different insurance companies. The third folder nearly made me vomit right there at my kitchen table. It was documentation of 2 previous marriages before Alexander. 2 previous husbands who had both died in suspicious circumstances. The first was Derek Monroe, died in a house fire in 2008. The investigation report showed he'd been drinking heavily that night, which wasn't unusual for him according to neighbors interviewed afterward. Fire marshal ruled it accidental, 'cause listed as smoking in bed while intoxicated. Victoria collected $500,000 in insurance money. The file included her insurance claim forms, processed without any issues or red flags. The second was Marcus Hawthorne, died from a fall down the stairs in 2012. Police report indicated he fell down basement stairs in their home, broke his neck, died instantly before paramedics could arrive. Investigation found a weakened step on the staircase, the wood partially rotted through, but concluded it was due to age and poor maintenance rather than any intentional sabotage. Victoria collected $750,000 from his life insurance policy. The case was closed within 2 weeks. Alexander Winters, according to the accident report in the folder, had died when his car went off a bridge in 2022. Brake failure on a mountain road during a business trip. Vehicle inspection after recovery showed brake line deterioration consistent with age and exposure to salt and elements. Ruled accidental. Victoria collected $1.2 million. But the final document in that folder changed everything. It was a death certificate dated 6 months ago for Alexander Winters with a note attached in his handwriting. This certificate is fake. I staged my end to protect Sophia and to gather evidence against Victoria before she could eliminate me for real. She doesn't know I'm alive. She can never know I'm alive, or she'll use Sophia to force me out of hiding. I've been watching from a distance for 2 years, documenting everything, waiting for the right moment to stop her. I sat back from my laptop trying to process what I was seeing, trying to make my brain accept this impossible reality. If this was real, if any of this was true, I'd married a serial butcher. A black widow who'd homicided at least 2 men, possibly 3, and collected millions in insurance money. And tonight, according to Alexander's note, she was planning to make me number 4. I checked my watch. It was 2:47 p.m. If Alexander was right about having 6 hours, that meant Victoria would make her move around 8 p.m. during our family dinner at her house. My phone rang suddenly, making me jump so hard I knocked over my coffee mug. It was Victoria. "Hey, honey," she said, her voice warm and loving and completely normal. "I'm at the grocery store picking up ingredients for dinner. Do you prefer the regular pasta or the wheat pasta?" I forced my voice to sound normal, casual, unsuspecting. "Regular's fine. Perfect. Oh, and Ethan, I'm so glad we're doing this tonight. Just the 3 of us. It feels like we're really becoming a family, doesn't it?" "Yeah," I said, staring at the evidence of her previous families spread across my laptop screen. Photos of dead men who'd probably said the exact same thing. "It really does. I'll see you at 6:30. Don't be late." There was something in the way she emphasized those last 3 words that sent chills down my spine. After she hung up, I immediately called the number at the bottom of Alexander's note. It rang 4 times before a man answered. "You opened the box," he said. Not a question, a statement of fact. Alexander Winters. That's the name I used to have. Now I'm just a man trying to keep his daughter alive while documenting his ex-wife's crimes. "Did you read everything on the drive?" "Most of it. This is insane. Victoria she can't be a butcher." "She is," Alexander interrupted, his voice firm and certain. "And she's very good at it. The first 2 looked like accidents because they were accidents, sort of. She created situations where accidents became inevitable. With Derek Monroe, she made sure he was extremely intoxicated and had been smoking in bed. She probably crushed sleeping pills into his dinner, though I can't prove that. With Marcus Hawthorne, she weakened the basement stairs over several weeks, then called him down to check a fake leak she'd created with a small water valve. With me, she sabotaged my car's brake line with a small, nearly invisible cut that would fail under heavy braking. I discovered it an hour before she expected me to drive that route. I had enough time to stage my passing and go into hiding. "Why didn't you go to the police with all this evidence?" Alexander laughed bitterly. "With what evidence? Victoria's a genius at covering her tracks. Every document, every transaction, every interaction is carefully planned months in advance. The police investigated my accident and found nothing suspicious. They investigated Derek's fire and Marcus's fall and then found nothing. She's untouchable through conventional channels. That's why I've spent 2 years gathering evidence, watching her from a distance, documenting her patterns, waiting for her to target someone else so I could finally catch her in the act with irrefutable proof. Then what am I supposed to do? Just wait for her to eliminate me? No. You're going to survive tonight, and you're going to help me finally take her down. But first, you need to understand exactly how she operates. Victoria doesn't do anything violent herself. She never gets her hands dirty. She arranges situations, creates scenarios where accidents happen naturally. Tonight at dinner, she'll probably suggest you check something in the basement. A leak, maybe, or a strange noise, or the water heater acting up. The basement stairs have been sabotaged. You'll fall, break your neck, and it'll look like a tragic accident. Sophia will be upstairs studying, won't hear anything unusual. By the time she comes down, it'll be too late. I thought about Victoria's house, the basement with its steep wooden stairs leading down into darkness. I'd only been down there once to help move some storage boxes. How do you know that's her plan? How can you be so certain? Because it's the same thing she did to Marcus. Same method, different house, different sufferer. Victoria has patterns. She sticks with what works. She's not creative. She's methodical. I've been monitoring her from a distance for 2 years, watching her set this up. When you started dating 6 months ago, I knew she'd found her next target. I watched her evaluate you, investigate your finances, research your family situation. When she confirmed you had no children and substantial life insurance through your firm, I knew you were in danger. Why didn't you warn me then? 6 months ago. Would you have believed a supposedly dead ex-husband calling to tell you your new girlfriend was a serial butcher? No. You'd have thought I was insane or it was a prank. You'd have told Victoria she'd have adjusted her plans, moved to a different city, found a different sufferer, and you'd be dead already. I had to wait until the last possible moment, until she was fully committed to tonight's timeline and couldn't back out without raising suspicion. What about Sophia? Is she involved? Does she know? Sophia has no idea what her mother is. Victoria's been a perfect mother to her, loving and attentive and supportive. It's part of how she maintains her cover. Nobody suspects a devoted single mom of being a butcher. Sophia thinks I died in an accident. She's been in grief counseling for 2 years, still having nightmares about losing me. If she knew the truth about everything, it would absolutely destroy her. That's why I've stayed hidden, why I haven't tried to contact her. Victoria would use her against me. I looked at the time again. 3:15 p.m. Just over 5 hours until dinner. The storage unit, I said. What's in it? Recording equipment. Cameras small enough to hide in your clothes. Audio devices that look like everyday objects. Everything you need to document what happens tonight. You're going to go to that dinner and you're going to get Victoria to confess on tape. It's the only way to stop her. The only evidence that will hold up in court. She'll never confess. Why would she? She will if you handle it right. Victoria's greatest weakness is her ego. She thinks she's smarter than everyone else, and she is, to be fair, but that makes her cocky. If you confront her with evidence, if you show her you know what she's done, she'll want to explain how clever she was, how she fooled everyone, including the police. That's when we get her. That's when her arrogance becomes her downfall. And if something goes wrong, if she realizes what I'm doing, Alexander's silence stretched long enough to be an answer in itself. Finally, he said, "Then you run and you take Sophia with you. Because if Victoria thinks you're a threat, she won't wait for the perfect accident. She'll improvise. And that makes her dangerous in a completely different way. She has money hidden, resources, connections. She can disappear and take Sophia with her." I spent the next hour at the Highland storage facility learning how to use the equipment Alexander had prepared. The camera was built into a button on my shirt, nearly invisible unless you knew what to look for. The audio recorder was disguised as a pen in my pocket, everything wireless, everything transmitting to Alexander's laptop in real time from outside the house. There was also a backup recorder hidden in my watch band, just in case the primary devices failed. "I'll be monitoring from my car parked down the street," he explained over the phone as I practiced with the equipment. "If anything goes wrong, I can be inside in 30 seconds. But, Ethan, you need to understand something. After 2 years of hiding, this is it. This is our only shot. If we don't get her confession tonight, if something goes wrong and she realizes I'm alive, she'll disappear. She has the money and resources to vanish completely. And she'll take Sophia with her. I'll never see my daughter again. After 2 years of hiding, you're risking exposure to help me, a complete stranger. I'm risking exposure to save my daughter from growing up with a monster and to stop Victoria from eliminating anyone else. How many more sufferers after you? 5, 10? She won't stop until someone stops her. This ends tonight, one way or another. At 6:15 p.m., I drove to Victoria's house in the suburbs. My shirt camera was recording. My audio pen was in my pocket. And in my other pocket, I had something Alexander didn't know about. My phone set to auto dial 911. If I didn't cancel the call within 2 hours, if I became sufferer number 4 tonight, at least the police would hear what happened. Victoria greeted me at the door with a kiss that now felt like a lie, like poison disguised as affection. Right on time, Sophia's finishing homework upstairs. Dinner will be ready in 20 minutes. The house smelled amazing, like garlic and tomato sauce and fresh bread. Normal, domestic, comforting. Exactly the kind of scene that would make the news anchors shake their heads sadly when they reported my tragic accidental end. Another loving husband, another devoted stepfather, gone too soon in a preventable household accident. Can I help with anything? I asked, following Victoria into the kitchen. You could open the wine. There's a bottle of that Chianti you like in the basement wine rack. There it was, the first move. I'd barely been in the house 5 minutes, and she was already trying to get me down those stairs, trying to position me where the accident would happen. Actually, I'm not really in the mood for wine tonight. Long day at work. Maybe just water. Victoria's smile didn't waver, but something flickered in her eyes. Annoyance, maybe, or concern that her script wasn't being followed exactly as planned. Oh, okay, well, there's sparkling water in the basement fridge if you want that instead. Still trying, still pushing toward those stairs. Regular tap water's fine, I said, filling a glass from the kitchen sink. She watched me drink, her expression unreadable. Then she turned back to stirring her sauce, and I could see the gears turning behind her eyes, recalculating, adjusting her plan to account for my unexpected resistance. Sophia came downstairs then, saving me from whatever Victoria's next move would have been. She gave me a quick hug, unusual for a teenager, and started setting the table. I helped her, grateful for the task that kept us both in the kitchen where Victoria couldn't isolate me. During dinner, I watched Victoria more carefully than I ever had before. She was performing, I realized. Every gesture, every word, every loving glance at Sophia or affectionate touch on my arm was calculated. She was playing the role of perfect wife and mother, and she was absolutely brilliant at it. If I didn't know what I knew, I would never suspect anything was wrong. Ethan, you seem distracted again, Victoria said as we cleared the dinner plates. Are you sure everything's okay? Actually, I said, taking a breath, there's something we need to talk about, something important. Sophia looked between us nervously. She'd lived through one parent's end already. Any serious adult conversation probably triggered anxiety for her. Sophia, honey, why don't you go upstairs for a bit? Victoria said gently. Ethan and I need some private time. No, I said firmly. Sophia should hear this too. It concerns her directly. Victoria's expression shifted, the mask slipping slightly. Ethan, I really don't think... I know about Alexander, I interrupted. I know he's alive. The kitchen went completely silent. Sophia stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Victoria's face went completely blank, emotionless in a way that was more terrifying than anger would have been. What are you talking about? Sophia whispered. My dad is dead. He died 2 years ago in a car accident. No, sweetheart, he's not. He staged his passing to escape your mother. And I know why. Victoria stood up slowly, her movements controlled and deliberate. Ethan, you're clearly not well. Maybe you should go home and get some rest. We can talk about this tomorrow when you're thinking more clearly. I'm thinking perfectly clearly. I know about Derek Monroe. I know about Marcus Hawthorne. I know about the insurance money, all of it. And I know that tonight you are planning to make me your 4th sufferer. Sophia was crying now, confused and scared. Mom, what's he talking about? What insurance money? What suffers? Victoria ignored her daughter completely, her full attention on me now. The mask was completely gone, stripped away. What I saw in her eyes was cold calculation and something else. Curiosity. How did you find out? She asked calmly, like we were discussing the weather instead of multiple homicides. Does it matter? It matters to me. I'm very careful, meticulous, actually. Whoever told you obviously had access to information that should have been impossible to obtain. I need to know where the leak was. Alexander left me everything. Every document, every medical record, every piece of evidence he gathered over 6 months. He's been watching you for 2 years, documenting everything, waiting for this exact moment. Victoria actually smiled, a genuine expression of something like admiration or respect. Alexander, he always was more resourceful than the others, more intelligent, more careful. I should have made absolutely certain he was dead before I collected the insurance money. That was sloppy of me, uncharacteristically sloppy. Sophia was standing now, backing away from her mother toward the kitchen doorway. Mom, what is he talking about? You couldn't have. Oh, Sophia. Victoria sighed like a teacher disappointed with a slow student. You're such an innocent child. So trusting. So easy to manipulate. Just like your father was. Just like they all were. That's what makes it work, Find people who want to believe, who want to trust, who want to see the best in others. I felt my phone in my pocket, silently counting down to that auto dial. 15 more minutes. I needed to keep her talking, needed to get the full confession on tape. You want to know the truth, Sophia? Victoria continued, her voice taking on an almost dreamy quality, like she was reminiscing about fond memories. I've been planning Ethan's passing since our third date. The moment I confirmed he had substantial life insurance through his firm and no children to inherit, he became my next project. And you, my darling daughter, have been the perfect prop throughout all of this. Who would ever suspect a devoted mother of being a butcher? Who would question a woman raising her teenage daughter alone after losing her husband in a tragic accident? Mom, stop, Sophia pleaded, her voice breaking. Please stop talking. You're scaring me. The beautiful thing about it, Victoria said, and now she was talking directly to me, her ego fully engaged just like Alexander predicted, is how simple it really is once you understand the psychology. You find a man with money and no close family. You become exactly what he needs emotionally. You make him dependent on you, isolated from his support system. You do it gradually, subtly, so he doesn't even notice it happening. And then you create the perfect accident. Not homicide. Never anything that looks like homicide. Just tragic circumstances that could happen to anyone. Like sabotaging Alexander's brakes. She laughed, actually laughed with genuine amusement. That was elegant, wasn't it? He was supposed to die on that mountain road during his business trip. The investigation would have found nothing but brake failure from old, deteriorated brake lines. Tragic accident. Poor single mother, left to raise her daughter alone. Except Alexander figured it out somehow. He discovered the sabotage just in time and disappeared before I could try again. I should have hunted him down, made absolutely certain, but the insurance company paid out anyway after the required waiting period for missing persons presumed dead. So in a way it worked out fine. Maybe even better, since there was no body to examine. What about Derek and Marcus? How did you eliminate them? I asked, needing her to say it explicitly. Derek was easy. He smoked in bed sometimes when he was drunk, which was often toward the end. I just had to make sure he was very drunk one night and very sleepy from the medication I crushed into his dinner. Ambien, ground up fine, and mixed into his food. The fire marshal ruled it accidental. Smoking in bed while intoxicated, tragic, but unfortunately common. Marcus required more planning, more patience. I spent weeks weakening a step on our basement stairs, just enough that it would give way under his weight at exactly the right moment. Then I called him down to check on a fake leak I'd created by loosening a pipe. He fell exactly as expected. Broken neck. Instant passing. The police found the weakened step, but they assumed it was just old wood that had rotted through. Poor maintenance. Not poor intentions. Not homicide. Tonight was going to be similar, she continued, and I could hear genuine pride in her voice. The basement stairs here have a loose board at the top step. I've been working on it for 2 months, carefully weakening it, making sure it would give way at precisely the right moment, with exactly the right amount of force. All I needed was to get you down there, maybe ask you to check on the water heater or investigate a strange noise. A little push at exactly the right moment, and you'd tumble down. Sophia would be upstairs with her headphones on, studying for her math test like always. She wouldn't hear anything unusual. By the time she came down and found you, it would be too late. Another tragic accident, another grieving widow, another insurance payout, this time for $1.5 million since you increased your policy last month. You're completely insane, I said. No, Ethan, I'm practical. I'm pragmatic. I see the world clearly, without all the sentimental delusions that weak people cling to. Do you know how much money I've made from my marriages? Almost $3 million in tax-free insurance money. And I've never had to work a real job because of it. I've lived comfortably, raised my daughter in nice homes, taken vacations whenever I wanted, bought whatever we needed, all because I'm willing to do what weak, sentimental people like you won't do. I'm willing to see relationships for what they really are. Transactions, opportunities, resources to be exploited for maximum benefit. Mom, stop. Sophia was sobbing now, her whole body shaking. Please stop talking, please. Victoria turned to her daughter, and for the first time I saw something like genuine emotion cross her face. Regret, maybe, or something approximating it. I'm sorry you had to hear this, Sophia. I truly am. But Ethan forced my hand by figuring it out somehow. If he'd just gone down those stairs like he was supposed to, you would never have known any of this. You could have kept believing in me, kept loving me, kept being my perfect daughter. Now everything's ruined. Now I have to figure out what to do with both of you, and the options aren't good. That's when my phone in my pocket silently connected to 911. I could hear the faint sound of the dispatcher answering, asking for the nature of the emergency. I pulled it out and put it on speaker. This is 911 dispatch. What's your emergency? I need police at 4725 Birchwood Drive immediately, I said clearly, my eyes locked on Victoria. The homeowner has just confessed to multiple homicides. Everything has been recorded. Send units now. This is not a prank call. Victoria's expression transformed from calm confidence to pure rage in an instant. She lunged toward me across the kitchen, but Sophia moved faster than either of us expected. My stepdaughter grabbed her mother's arm, holding her back with surprising strength. No, Mom, Sophia said through her tears. No more, please, no more, I can't, I just can't. The sound of sirens filled the air outside, multiple units approaching fast. Alexander must have heard everything through the audio feed and called the police as backup. Within minutes, the house was surrounded by police cars, lights flashing red and blue through every window. They took Victoria away in handcuffs while she screamed that I'd fabricated everything, that the recordings were fake, that this was all some elaborate conspiracy against her orchestrated by her supposedly dead ex-husband, who was clearly insane. But the evidence was overwhelming. The medical records documenting her psychiatric issues and lack of empathy. The financial documents showing the insurance payouts from 3 dead husbands. The private investigators' reports detailing her patterns. The documented history of suspicious ends. And most damning of all, her own recorded confession, captured in perfect clarity by Alexander's equipment, transmitted in real time to his laptop, parked down the street, and simultaneously uploaded to secure cloud storage as backup in case something went wrong. That's when Alexander appeared, walking up the driveway like a ghost returning from the dead. Sophia saw him first and froze completely, her face cycling through shock and disbelief and confusion, before finally landing on pure joy. She ran to him, and they collapsed into each other, father and daughter reunited after 2 years of believing they'd never see each other again. Even the hardened police officers standing around had to look away from that moment. This was what it had all been about. Not revenge, not justice exactly, but love. Alexander's love for Sophia had kept him alive and hidden for 2 years. And that same love had saved my life tonight. The investigation that followed revealed even more than Alexander had discovered. Victoria had a previous identity before Derek Monroe, before she became Victoria Ashford. Her real name was Victoria Ann Mitchell, and she'd been suspected but never charged in the passing of her college boyfriend 20 years ago. He'd fallen from a balcony at a party, landed 3 stories down on concrete. Ruled accidental at the time, but now being reinvestigated in light of the established pattern. The district attorney was building a case that would likely put Victoria away for life. Multiple counts of homicide, attempted homicide, insurance fraud, conspiracy, and a dozen other charges. Life without the possibility of parole. Sophia moved in with Alexander, who'd been living under an assumed name in a small apartment across town, working cash jobs under the table to avoid leaving a paper trail Victoria might discover. Sophia was traumatized, absolutely devastated by her mother's betrayal, and the realization of what Victoria really was underneath the loving mother act. But she was getting intensive therapy and slowly beginning to heal. Alexander made sure she understood that none of this was her fault, that she'd been a sufferer too, manipulated and used by someone who should have protected her above all else. As for me, I sold my accounting practice, and moved to a different state. Started fresh somewhere. Victoria's shadow couldn't reach, where I didn't have to constantly look over my shoulder, wondering if she somehow had resources or connections that might reach me. I still have nightmares sometimes. Dreams where I'm falling down those basement stairs, where the stranger in the cafe never appeared, where I trusted the wrong person and paid the ultimate price. But mostly I think about Alexander Winters risking exposure after 2 years of careful hiding, betting absolutely everything on the hope that I'd open that blue velvet box and believe an impossible story. If I'd ignored him, if I'd thrown the box away or shown it to Victoria, thinking it was some weird prank or scam, I'd be dead now. Sophia would still be living with a butcher, being used as a prop for her mother's next elimination. Victoria would be planning sufferer number 5, maybe number 6, continuing her pattern indefinitely until someone finally stopped her. Sometimes the difference between life and end really does come down to a single moment of trust. A decision to believe something that seems impossible. A willingness to look at the person you love and see them clearly, even when the truth is absolutely terrifying and conflicts with everything you want to believe. I got incredibly lucky. The mysterious stranger who handed me that box was exactly who he claimed to be. The evidence was real, the danger was real and immediate, the threat to my life was real, and I had just barely enough time to act before it was too late. Not everyone gets that lucky. Not everyone gets a warning. Most of Victoria's sufferers never knew what was coming until it was too late. They trusted, they loved, they built lives with her. And they died believing their ends were just tragic accidents, random bad luck. If there's anything I learned from this nightmare, it's that you never truly know another person. Not really, not completely. You know the version of themselves they choose to show you, the performance they give, the mask they wear in your presence. Victoria showed me a loving wife, a devoted mother, a woman who wanted to build a future with me and include me in her family. What she actually was underneath that carefully crafted performance was a cold, calculating predator who saw me as nothing more than her next payday, her next sufferer, her next insurance claim. So now I'm more careful. Maybe too careful if I'm being honest with myself. I don't date, don't trust easily, don't let people get close enough to hurt me or deceive me. Some people would say that's no way to live, that I'm letting Victoria's evil poison my future and prevent me from finding real happiness again. Maybe they're right. Maybe I'm letting her win by becoming isolated and suspicious of everyone. But I'm alive to have that debate, to question those choices, to wonder about what might have been different. And that's more than Derek Monroe or Marcus Hawthorne or that college boyfriend from 20 years ago can say. The truth is, everyone wears masks to some degree. We all present versions of ourselves to the world, emphasizing our good qualities and hiding our flaws and insecurities. That's just normal human behavior, the social contract we all participate in. But some people wear masks of an entirely different kind. Some people construct elaborate personas designed specifically to deceive, to manipulate, to exploit others for personal gain. Victoria wore her mask perfectly for years, fooling therapists and police investigators and insurance adjusters and 3 separate husbands before me. She was that good at it, that practiced and skilled. And sometimes, just sometimes, a small blue velvet box handed to you by a stranger in a cafe is the only thing standing between you and becoming another name on a list of tragic accidents. Another statistic, another sufferer who trusted the wrong person at the wrong time and paid with their life. I think about that every single day. I think about how close I came, how many small decisions could have changed the outcome. If I'd arrived at the cafe 5 minutes earlier or later, if Victoria and Sophia hadn't gone to the restroom at that exact moment, if I'd dismissed the stranger's warning as crazy rambling, any of those things would have meant my passing. Instead, I'm here alive, free, telling this story as a warning to others. Trust carefully, question thoroughly. And if someone hands you a blue velvet box with an impossible warning, maybe, just maybe, take the time to open it and see what's inside.